Greetings. My name is Reverend Dr. Jeff Hood. I come to you with an incredibly important message. There is an innocent man on death row in Oklahoma. His name is Anthony Sanchez. I met Anthony about 6 months ago when he asked me to be his spiritual advisor. When I first met Anthony, he told me about his innocence claim. Told me he was innocent. Often when I hear of an innocence claim, I'm incredibly skeptical, and this time was no different. In my skepticism, I put off going and looking at the evidence. But the more Anthony talked, the more I became curious about the case. You see, Anthony was convicted of murdering Jewell Busken in 1996. She was abducted from her apartment complex and she was found shot and killed at Lake Draper, which is east of Norman. Norman, Oklahoma. Well, when I learned all of this and I saw the evidence, I thought to myself, man, this evidence looks incredibly convincing. And there is no doubt at first glance it is. They claim to have had a bullet that matched the scene. They claim to have had a sketch that resembled Anthony. They claim to have a footprint that resembled Anthony. They claim to have a DNA match. And of course, when we live in an age where when we hear DNA, we think this must be 100%. And so as I looked at all these things, I thought, this is a slam dunk case. This guy's guilty. Well, then I started looking closer at the sketch. And I read that the witness who made the sketch said that the killer was much older than the victim. Well, Ms. Busken was 21 years old when this happened. Anthony was 18 years and 3 months when this happened. The other thing that I thought about was the bullet. And I thought, okay, well, if the bullet matches, then that's got to say something. And this bullet was found in a place where Anthony used to live, so that's got to say something. Then I realized that the bullet is a very common bullet and comes from all sorts of manufacturers. Then I thought, okay, well, what about the shoe print? I mean, the shoe print must say a lot, right? Well, then I started reading about shoe print evidence and how shoe print evidence has been consistently debunked. And then it looked like the shoe prints weren't the same sizes, Anthony's shoe and this shoe print. The other thing I began to think about is the prosecution put forward a theory that Anthony was breaking into cars in the parking lot of Jewell Busken's apartment complex, and Jewell Busken stumbled on him early in the morning. She was helping a friend with travel arrangements, and therefore, Anthony goes from stealing Christmas packages to murdering a woman and driving her out to Lake Draper. Well, then I thought that didn't fit. I mean, it doesn't seem likely in my mind that an 18-year-old gets caught stealing packages and the next thing you know, he's abducting and killing someone. Well, then I started looking at the car, and they found all of these fingerprints in the car, and none of those fingerprints matched Anthony Sanchez. Well, then I started looking at this whole situation with how Anthony was found, or Anthony was pinned as the perpetrator. There were years and years that went by, and they couldn't figure out who did this. They couldn't figure out who killed Miss Busken. Well, they claimed to have made a match, a cold match. Basically, Anthony was in prison and had to give his DNA as a result of his conviction. And in doing that, the crime lab claimed to have made a match to DNA found on a leotard that was Jewell Busken's. Well, I started looking into the crime lab that would have handled this, and a lady by the name of Joyce Gilchrist, for at least a time in which some of this DNA was being handled, was a supervisor. She was later revealed to have lied and fabricated evidence in a whole host of cases. Well, then I thought, well, perhaps the DNA isn't as, foolproof as I thought it was. Then I started to see issues within the DNA reports themselves. All of this pushed me to a point of deciding, okay, I need to talk to other members of Anthony's family. Well, I began to realize, and Anthony told me something we talked about, his father had committed suicide 6, 7, 8 months prior. Well, as I began to talk with the family and ask why he committed suicide, his father's girlfriend revealed to me that Glenn had confessed to killing Jewell Busken before he committed suicide. Now that's right. I want to make sure that you hear this. Anthony's father confessed to killing Jewell Busken on multiple occasions before he committed suicide. In the last couple of weeks, I have spent my time helping to put together a team, raising money to fight for Anthony's innocence. Because as I've learned more and more and more, there's no doubt in my mind that Anthony Sanchez is innocent. My heart breaks for the family of Jewell Busken. She was an amazing person. She was a ballerina, a student at Oklahoma University. Just an amazing person. And again, my heart breaks for them. But my heart also breaks that for over 16, 17 years, a man by the name of Anthony Sanchez has been left to rot on death row in Oklahoma. I believe that the family of Jewell Busken deserves to know the truth. I believe that Anthony Sanchez deserves the truth. I believe that the people of Oklahoma deserve the truth. At trial, as the guilty verdict came down, as the death sentence came down, Anthony Sanchez turned to the Buskens and said, "Mr. and Mrs. Busken, I did not kill your daughter." And I am saying to all of you, Anthony Sanchez did not kill Jewell Busken. For over 16, 17 years, he has been passed around from attorneys, some active, some inactive. He has been left to rot. And now he is scheduled to be executed in September. Will you please join me? Please, let's not let an innocent man be executed in Oklahoma.